Okay, here we go.
All right, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to our weekly class on the Parshat Hashavua, the weekly Torah portion. This week's parsha is an interesting one, Parshat Vayishlach. And to a certain degree, this is the long-anticipated showdown between Yaakov and Esau, right? We know that for at least 20 years, but really there's a indication that we're talking about 44 years. Yaakov has been exiled from his home, Be'er Sheva, because he's been running from his brother, right? His brother Esau, who was incredibly upset about the fact that Yaakov had succeeded in getting the blessings from Yitzchak, from their father Yitzchak, out from from under Esau's nose. And Yaakov therefore had to run for his life to not face off with Esau. And he ended up in the land of Haran by his uncle Laban, and he spent 20 years there. Now, again, there's indications in the Midrash and also from if you just go through the timeline of the years, that there's another 24 years in the mix. Those are 24 years that he spent studying in the Yeshivat Sheva Aver. So for 44 years, Yaakov has been avoiding the confrontation with his brother Esau. And in the beginning of this week's parsha, on his way home, that confrontation happens. So again, this is something that has been anticipated or dreaded for 44 years, and now it's going to happen. Having said that, to a certain degree, Yaakov is definitely not who he was 44 years ago. He doesn't know if Esau is the same person he was 44 years ago, and that kind of leads all and feeds the drama of this moment. Now, the truth is, to really properly understand this, we have to understand that Yaakov and Esau have been vying with each other their entire lives, straight out of the womb. And the truth is, even before they left the womb, they have been vying with each other. You know that when Rivka was pregnant, she would pass by this place of pagan worship, idol worship, or really just ideas, a place that where people would be focused on the world, on this world, and she would feel within her the baby with this drive to get out and to go connect with that element and to be part of it. And then she would pass by the place of higher of connecting with God, and she felt that same pull, and she couldn't figure this out. In fact, she didn't just say, "Well, what's going on with this child within me." She actually used a more existential statement. She says, "Im kain lama ze anochi," right? Why therefore am I? Right? So really, kind of this existential crisis that she was having. And she went to ask God, and she was told that you really have two within you. You have twins, but they're not just twins, and they're not going to act like, brothers, like friendly brothers. Rather, Shnei goyim mime'ayeti paredu. There's two nations, and they will go their separate ways. But it's not even that they will just kind of be different and ignore each other, but rather, as we say, ula'om mil'om yamatz, they will constantly be vying for supremacy, each one. And when one is up, the other one is down. And when one is down, the other one is up. This is going to be their legacy. They're going to constantly be at loggerheads with each other. They're going to constantly be vying for supremacy. And by the way, spoiler alert, it says that the Rav Yavod Seir, in the end, it will be the elder will serve the younger. The elder one will serve the younger. Okay, tidbit of information. We'll come back to that in a moment. And then from the womb, in the first moments of life, we see the continuation of that vying, that wrestling between these two, in the fact that even as Esav is born, Yaakov is grasping his heel. And this doesn't just become an interesting anecdote. Oh, yeah, Yaakov is grasping his brother's heel. This becomes his whole name. His whole identity is Yaakov because he's holding onto the Akev, onto the heel of Esav. This literally becomes how he is called and defined, right? Then fast forward, and it's the whole thing with the birthright, right? And the bowl of soup and selling and the machinations in that regard. And then it goes into the blessing, right? And the whole fight about blessings, and that this later informs Yaakov's whole life, right? 44 years he spent away from home because of this situation, and apparently, as we see, it also has affected Esau for his entire life, right? Because we're going to see in a moment that when Yaakov sends the angels to go find out how, has he recovered from this incident and can look past it, apparently he can't, right? Right? He's coming with 400 men to face off. So clearly it's been on Esau's mind also for all this time. So the two of them are now both parents and parents with not newly weds, etc. These are older people, and yet this rivalry still very much informs every aspect of them, and it carries forwards. It doesn't end up having a reconciliation in this week's parsha, right? It does not have a reconciliation because when even after Yaakov and Esav hug, and kiss, Esav says, come back with me. And Yaakov kind of says, this is not the right time, right? And he uses an excuse. He says, yeah, I mean, the little kids and the young sheep, and if I push them too hard to follow you, rather you go, and I'll catch up. Which he never does. It's never his plan to go to Seir, right? His plan is to go back to Beersheba, and this is really, other than the time of Yitzchak's, the passing of Yitzchak, and his burial, we do not see that Yaakov and Esav ever re-engage. And when they do engage for that last moment on the burial of Yitzchak, we still see that the rivalry carries on because Esav had sold the firstborn born birthright fair and square, and yet he insisted on walking first behind the coffin of their father, which means that he did not accept his brother's primacy in this, and so even to the and this is the indication of the Talmud that he did not pass like Yishmael passed away at Tzaddik because he allowed Yitzchak to go first in the burial of Abraham. And in this we see the Talmud says we see an indication that Yitzchak did not. Yitzchak did not. Esav did not um, repent and still maintained really to the end of his days in a position of, of rivalry with Yah. So this really is this tremendous battle, and to a certain degree, the most dramatic moment of it is about to occur, right? And the setup of this is that Yaakov knows he's on his way back, and that his path is not going to be to go around Esav, but through Esav. There's no way back home without passing through Esav. And this is what he's been avoiding. But he knows it has to happen. In fact, to the point where when he is starting to have his children, right? Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, etc., he finally has one child, and this child was not child number 12. So it's not like he was waiting for all 12 children to be born. He had one child, and when he had this child, he finally says, "Oh, now he turns to Lavan and he says, Shalchini ve'elcha, send me and I will go home because I'm ready to go." Which child was this? Does anybody know? Yosef. He has Yosef, and finally says, "Now I can go home." Right? So the Talmud clarifies that what he was saying, why was he waiting? What was he waiting for? Why, when he had Yosef, was he finally ready to go home? Because the confrontation between him and Esav, in order for him to feel confident that he would have the better of this confrontation, he needed the element of Yosef. As we read in the Haftorah from this week, that it says, He Esav Makash, that Esav will be straw, and Yaakov and Yosef, Yaakov will be fire, and Yosef will be a flame. And he needed that element. He needed the element of Yosef in order to feel sure that he will be able to take on Esav. And so this
Why?
is really on his mind the whole time. What he needed. He needed this to because he knew that there was no going home without passing through Asa. So now he knows this is happening. He is now facing Esav, and he sends Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim, and Yaakov sends the angels. He sends the angels to find out who he is facing on the other side, because he himself obviously he has reconciled. El Esav Achiv, right? He says, Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim El Esav Achiv. Yaakov is sending angels to Esav, who is his brother. To him, Esav is a brother, right? To a certain degree, you say, well, of course she's fine with it because Esav didn't do anything wrong to him. He's the one who did the wrong thing to Esav. The truth is, no, that's not a fair assessment at all. Yaakov has every reason to be disgruntled and upset. You sold it the birthright fair and square. You tried to come and sneak and get the blessing, which is part of the birthright, unfairly. I managed to foil your plans, and therefore I have to spend this past 44 years in exile because you were not able to keep your word. Yaakov has every reason to be, in theory, upset, right? But either way, Yaakov says Yaakov that if he, as far as he's concerned, it's Esav Achiv, Esav is right. The angels come back, right, and they tell Yaakov that Banu Alachicha, we came to your brother El Esav. Banu Alachicha El Esav. We came to your brother, but he's Esav. To you, he was Esav Achiv, Esav your brother, or Esav his brother. When we went to him, he was your brother Esav. This is who he is at the end of this. And he's coming to greet you with 400 men, and the role of these 400 men ain't to wish you happy, but right, right. They're not here to be your welcoming committee. So, and that's when Yaakov prepares in a way that we always prepares by praying to God, right? Hatzileni nami yadachim yad Esav. He prays to God. He prepares diplomacy. He sends a gift, right? A gift, quite a spread. He also teaches us something important and the strategy of gift giving. Anybody know what I'm talking about?
Cattle? I mean, flocks?
He spreads them out.
Oh,
He divides it up and spreads it out instead of just going and handing Esav the whole kind of collection at once. He sends an Eider Levado. He has a huge amount. He's sending him multiple flocks of animals, but he does it by and he spaces them, which is always it ends up creating a sense of a greater amount. When you say, right, they say he used to do this all the time. The ultimate pitchman. What was his name? But wait, there's more, right? But wait, there's more guy, right? Right? And this is what Yaakov was doing in terms of the gift. He didn't say, here it is, all of this, look at all this. He says that, but wait, there's more and more and more, so that's just in general.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
do you think that this diplomacy on Yaakov's part might have resulted in that fake kiss that his brother gave him? In other words, I've been trying to deal with this parsha in view of today and diplomacy, and You know what I'm asking you, please.
No, so yeah, no. So here's the thing. The thing is, when even when we're looking at Esav, what we say is unrepentant, and is Esav, as we're going to hear, is not the same thing as facing something like Hamas or Amalek, etc., etc. Esav is not Hamas and Amalek. Esav is evil, but evil that can be turned around. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But
Oh,
we cannot draw a comparison um, to what it
that's
is
so
that.
helpful. Thank you.
Okay, great. See that? All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. I'm here for. We'll see you all next week. No, I'm just kidding. But to a certain degree, this is where I want to go with this. This is like kind of key. Okay, so what are we saying? We're saying that it says he prayed, diplomacy, and then he says that if all else fails, war, right? Like a military strategy divides the camp in half. If we'll attack this side, then the other half will be there for the to act as a secondary camp. Um, uh, so uh, so he has a plan, right? Right. Pray to God, but then also prepare yourself. God, if for whatever reason the what's it called doesn't work, the diplomacy, the prayer and diplomacy doesn't work, right? Uh, so there's a line from I think World War I. Praise God and pass the ammunition. So either way. All right. Now here's the thing. So much is spent here. So much spent here on discussing this confrontation with Yaakov and Esau, right? And we're still not done because after that he first faces off with his angel, and then he faces off with him, right? What are we to make of this? Why is this all so important? Such a tremendous amount of what's it called devoted to such a tremendous amount of the Torah devoted to this rivalry, this back and forth between Yaakov and Esau. And the answer is because we're not just talking like in the Torah in general. We're not just talking about an historical event, even to the most important figures in our history, right? Even that would not warrant this kind of focus and attention. Rather, we are talking about ourselves. What is Yaakov and Esau in each and every one of us? Answer: these are our two close, not the Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara,
animal soul and the godly soul.
the animal soul and the godly soul. And now a whole bunch of things will make sense. A whole bunch of things will make sense when you understand that when you're hearing about the narrative of Yaakov and Esau, you are really hearing about your true soul. First of all, let's look at when Rivka is feeling the tug in two directions. This is not just her wondering about what kind of weird child she's got. She's having an existential crisis, right? Lama za'anoki, why therefore am I, she says. Because she is dealing with the same thing that we deal with, right? Where we feel this tug, these impulses in two opposite directions, and we're trying to figure out what kind of person am I, right? Right? We have the desire to be in shul, and while sitting there in shul, we're looking at the clock to figure out when it's over and I can finally go home, right? Which is like, wait a minute. So then you're a profoundly messed up individual. Do you want to be here? Good. You don't want to be here? If you're here and you don't want to be here. It's like you want to be in Shul Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. It's like, and I'm going to tell you, as you know, I'm sure all of you have heard my riff about the snooze button, right? Right? The snooze button is the weirdest thing that's ever been invented. You're the one who set the clock, right? You're the one who set the alarm clock. So you want to be the one who gets up at 6:30, right? Nobody else set that alarm clock. You did. Now, if what happens, you get at 6:30, you're like, okay, I decided I don't. So then turn off the alarm clock and go back to sleep. No, you hit the snooze button, which means I still want to get up, but I want to sabotage my plan for 5 minutes, right? I'm sabotaging my desire to get up. Just again, what kind of crazy person? That one button, in one move, you blended two opposite impulses. I want to get up, but I don't. I don't want to get up, but I do. Right? Because right next to that is the switch on and off button, or you could just get out of bed. So you're sabotage. So what's going on with you? You're a messed up individual. And the answer is that you have a Yaakov and Esav. You have an animal soul and you have a godly soul. There's a tremendous amount of spilled on the ink was spilled on this. This is the entire Tanya, right? It's a tale of two souls. By the way, it's not an accident that it happens to be that we will be completing the cycle of the Tanya, the yearly cycle. Tomorrow. Tomorrow is the last day of Tanya for the cycle. We begin again on Yutet Kislev, which is this Shabbos. Yutet Kislev is the Rosh Hashanah of Hasidus. It's a very significant day on the Chabad calendar. Very, very special and significant day. We'll be having a Farbrengen Motzei Shabbos at the Chabad for those that would like to participate. But importantly, I also recommend to everybody who has not yet given it a shot, we have a daily Tanya call, a 5-minute call in which we recap the Tanya. And all you have to do is, if you want, is just say, add my number to the list, and your phone will ring at 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you want, you answer the phone. And if you don't have the time, you don't answer and just carry on with your life. So you have an opportunity to opt in and start fresh. The first call will be this Saturday night. Will be the first call for the daily time. And we're starting again of this site. So I strongly recommend, and again, you can always then just say, this is not for me. It's between 5 to 7 minutes, and I do suggest that you give it a shot. But either way, this is really the Tanya's big kind of contribution to the great body of Jewish knowledge, is the comprehensive explanation as to the two souls that we deal with. Now, importantly, not only is it just a knowledge that we have two souls, which means that we can have dual impulses at the same time. But now a lot of information, knowing Esav means we know our soul better. Knowing the soul, we also know Esav a little bit better. Number one, which of the two is the elder soul? One would assume it's the godly soul. Nope. It's the Esav soul. It's your animalistic soul. And we know this when you look at yourself, which part of you is developed earlier on in life. When you are born straight out of the womb, just like Esav comes out fully developed, your animalistic instincts are fully developed. A baby immediately is aware of their hunger, is immediately aware of their being tired of hot and cold and comfort and discomfort and all these things, right? This is all a kind of ingrained in somebody immediately. Esav is the elder twin, right? It's the elder soul.
So Adam and Eve, they were first animalistic.
We're not talking about in a sense kind of historically. We're talking about individual, right? Each one of us as an individual, we start with our animal, with our kind of our material and our physical side more fully developed than our spiritual awareness, or our physical and material awareness more fully developed than our spiritual awareness. Adam and Eve are a little bit of a different thing, because by them, in a sense, the negative inclination was on the outside of them. That was external. But suffice it to say, but even then, there's a difference between a negative inclination and and kind of the animalistic side. We're going to talk about that in a moment. To understand that the first of the two that is developed is, and that is why, to a certain degree, the animalistic soul doesn't want to relinquish control, even if it logically a good argument is made to it why life, it can't be just about eating, drinking, and sleeping. Even then, it doesn't want to let go, because I'm here first. I'm primary, because that's what the word prime means. I'm first. I'm the first soul, right? But the purpose always is, as God immediately told Rivka from the get-go, "V'rav ya'avod sa'ir," right? That the elder should serve the younger. You have to live your life in a way, and you have to be cognizant of the fact that the elder soul, the elder consciousness, the elder awareness, as it were, has to serve the younger. Now, what does this mean? This means, and you will say, yeah, well, of course we have to live a spiritual life. No. For the most part, most of us suffer from the inverse. where our body and our body concerns, more materialistic concerns, takes a primacy, right? Number one, for example, which part of you do you refer to in the first person, and which part of you do you refer to in the third person? I don't know too many people that say, my body is hungry now, right?
Say I.
When you're referring to the needs of the physical and the material, you generally refer to that in the first person. I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm cranky, I'm upset, etc., right? And you refer to your soul in the third person, that's totally normal, your godly soul. Say, oh, my soul needs a little spirituality right now. My soul needs a little prayer. It's like that, people speak like that all the time, and it makes sense, right? It should be the other way around. In fact, it says that Rabbi Akiva, when he would give a shir, he would finish his shir, his Torah talk for lunch. He would break for lunch or for supper, and he would say, "It's now time to go feed the pet." And right, in other words, that the body, he was his soul, and he said, "No, time we have to go take care of the animal within ourselves, to take care of the body, etc., etc." That it has to be that even though that the body is or the animal soul comes first, it has to understand that its role is to serve. You eat and drink for a reason. You don't live to eat and drink and sleep, and that's not why you're here. You eat and drink and live so you can be healthy and full of energy in order to do that which the godly soul is here to direct us to do. Right? So the godly soul is maybe the younger of the developed. And that also makes sense because as we see from creation, the more central a creation, the further along in the process it's introduced, right? Think about God created mankind on the last day of creation. Everything else, all the stage settings, right? And the thing that is the most important, that's what gets introduced after everything else has been put into place. And so the godly soul is developed later for a reason. Set the stage for everything, get everything else in place, and now the godly soul can come in and take control. So that has to be understood. The Rav Ya'avod Sa'ir. And the second point that I just want to focus on, and then we'll have to call it for the week, we'll call, and the lesson, is that what is your engagement? I say, okay, great. So I'm ready to work with, engage in with the godly soul and the animal soul. So what's the strategy? Is the strategy to annihilate the animal soul, to erase it? Is the strategy to ignore it and pretend it doesn't exist? No. Your path is through Asa, but to an engagement, not to destroy Asa, not to eradicate Asa, but to conquer Asa, to take Asa and to turn it totally and assert your authority over it. And until you have done that you can't say I'm done. You cannot say I'm done. And that's key. You can't say, oh, Yaakov says, look, I'm holy and special, whatever it is, and I'm done. No, you have to go out and bring in Asa. There's another part of your nature that needs to be elevated. You can't sit there and say, I'm going to live a life of asceticism, right? Eat the barest minimum, and I'm just going to focus on my prayer and my learning, whatever it is. No, all of you, holistic approach. You have to bring all of you into the moment, your godly soul as well as your animalistic soul, and that until that is done, right? Then you still have work to do, and this is why Yaakov could not ignore Esav. He understood that he has to go through Esav, and that's why he's turning to Esav and he's saying, I'm ready. In Lavan Garti, right? I live with Lavan, and the letters Garti spelled Karyag. I'm good. Question is, how are you doing, right? And Esav showed that he's not ready, right? And Yaakov says, I'm going to be coming back for you, right? That's the last words he says to him. He says, not yet, but I'm coming back for you, right? And one is that is the great end game. That's the role of it all. The Alu Moshim Har Tzion, right?
Lishpot et Har Esav.
Lishpot et Har Esav, right? Savior will rise on Har Tzion, Yaakov, but not just that. Lishpot et Har Esav. The job is not done until we've taken authority over Har Esav. Not destroy it. It doesn't say to destroy it. says to rule over it. And then Vayitala Hashem Hamlucha. That's when Hashem's kingdom will be complete. And so I think we all sure. Yeah. Yes, please. Yes, okay, thank you. So Vayitala Hashem Hamlucha, that and that's all, and we cannot, if this is all part of Hashem's kingdom, then nothing can be left out, as it were. Hashem doesn't create scraps, right? Vayitala Hashem Hamlucha, and then V'haya Hashem Echad Ushmo Echad. Echad means that it's all one. It's all one under God's name and under God's sovereignty. And so we ourselves cannot be this bifurcated system. We need to be a unified, holistic system. Body, soul needs to be in sync, and from there, do that for the whole world. That is the lesson and the message. So in ourselves, we need to go find that raw kind of more animalistic side, and we need to find ways to bring that on board, use that in the holiest of ways.
Thank
All right,
you.
everybody?
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, everybody. Good Shabbos,
Thank
good
you,
Shabbos.
Rabbi.
Wishing
Shabbos,
everybody,
everyone.
wishing everybody a meaningful Yutet Kislev. Those that would like to join the Tanya call, let me know. We'll add you to the list. All right, everybody.
Rabbi, can you stay on for a second? Just 1 second.
Yes, briefly. Yes, go ahead. Quick.
Did you turn it off?
What?
Did you turn off the recording?
No. 1 second.